Good evening, Patriots. How's everybody doing tonight? Sorry we were a couple minutes late, but we've got everything squared away now. I'm going to wait a few minutes, let some people accumulate here before we get started. Seems like we got a pretty good crowd tonight, which is good. Florida, Cincinnati, Ohio, Wisconsin, Canada, California, PA, New York, Michigan. Okay, Los Angeles area, Phoenix, Texas. Indy. Hello, Indy. My golf buddy, my man. Tennessee, West Virginia, Missouri, Vancouver, another Indiana. Love it. Ohio, Arizona, Ohio, Quebec, Toronto, Palm Springs. Wow, great crowd. Utah, Oklahoma. Hey, Charles Music, how you doing? Idaho, DFW, Detroit, Rock City, love it. Illinois, Massachusetts, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Dallas, Texas. Okay. Melbourne in the house, Oklahoma, East Texas. Where we go one, we go all. That's right. The Great Awakening. Hey, Debbie. Providence, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. Fort Lauderdale. Spent many a spring break in Fort Lauderdale. Scurry, Texas. Okay, got a great crowd tonight. Colorado, where we go one, we go all. Queensland. Philly. Schofield, you got that right. Okay, guys, I think we can get started. We've got about 129 from my count, so I want to bring in Lady Justice. I talked about her before on our last video. She's going to be joining the White Hats team. She's going to have a blog on the whitehatsreport.com website, and we're going to be doing various videos from time to time. She has done videos. She has a YouTube channel, Lady Justice, so you can go check out some of her videos. A lot of them had to do with the Las Vegas shooting, but she's been varying her subjects and giving us some more information on some other things that are, I think, important and current events. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in Lady Justice. How you doing?
I'm well. How about you?
Pretty good. Pretty excited about what's going on. How about you?
I am excited as well. Every day is a new day and new information that comes out, and I'm anxiously awaiting some big moves, and I hope that we see some of those big moves very soon.
Yeah, I think the train's barreling down the track, and I don't think anything's going to stop it. So I'm pretty excited about that. So why don't you give yourself some sort of an introduction, say whatever you want to say about yourself so that our White Hat followers have got a little bit of familiarity with you and your background, and you can even talk about how we met and have worked together in some things, and then launch into your information.
Okay, sounds good. Well, hello everyone. I'm glad to see all these wonderful patriots in the chat tonight. I am I'm just so you know, I do have a household to run. I have a very active household, and I'm pulled in many different directions, as I'm sure a lot of you are as well. I love to get information out. I love to research. I love to talk about all of the current events that we have going on, and much more. Old events that I still feel are very pertinent to what we're going through today. And so I just want to apologize ahead of time, because you may hear some background noise at my headquarters here and there. You may hear some kids giggling here and there. You may hear some dogs barking. They like to have their say too. Everybody's very vocal in my house. So I just want to give that little buffer ahead of time. I started working as far as really working on researching what's going on in the world and what's going on in our government, and the concerns that I had really started around 9/11 for me. Just to give you some background on why I have the interests that I have, and why I'm here today. But I didn't submerge myself in it. I had a full-time career in finance. I had my hands full. I was in management and finance for many years. So I didn't throw myself into it like I feel like I am today. As a matter of fact, I feel like it was sort of my destiny in a way. But when the Las Vegas shooting occurred, October 1, 2017, it seems like that day was a day that changed my life. I happened to be on the phone with a friend when it all started. I had received a notification on my phone through some Facebook groups that I was in concerning Las Vegas, and it just it just escalated from there. I wound up listening to the scanner live that night, and listening to the scanner, and then listening to the press conferences following that day. That event in particular, to me, even though there are many events that that we all question, many events that have been false flags, many events that we've been lied to about, that one in particular just put its claws in me, and still holds on to this day. There was something about that day, that event, what we were told, what information we were given, how it all panned out. Everything was wrong from the get-go. You couldn't even plausibly explain any of it away, and so I threw myself into that wholeheartedly. I researched everything I could research. I really concentrated not on the event itself, but the characters that were involved, in particular the alleged shooter. And it led me down some paths that just blew my mind. And in the course of that, Paladin had done some interviews on a couple of different channels, and I happened to catch those, and what he had to say really intrigued me. I reached out to him through email. We talked. He then ignored me for a little bit. Not really. He actually had a medical emergency, but I thought he ignored me for a little bit. And then we hooked up again, and started really just digging deep and sharing information on Vegas. And I think I could safely say I've probably talked to Paladin almost every day since we connected about, I think it was, about 4 months, 4 months after the shooting, after the event in Vegas. And we have continued to research Vegas. We continue to have a lot of information yet to share on Vegas. But believe it or not, Vegas has been a root issue for me in many things. And you could even say that Vegas is a root issue for me in regards to what we're currently experiencing today with this panic factor that we have in place, with what is taking place, I think, behind the curtains. Vegas plays a role for me in that, and so it really holds a special place in my heart. But because of the fact that we have evolved to where we are today, and we know that we are so close to the Great Awakening, and what we're about to reveal, I think, to the world, it's pretty exciting at this point in time, and I hope it will soon be very rewarding, as far as having the information that we have, and knowing the ins and outs of the corruption that's been at work, and we're really looking forward to being able to celebrate the day that's all revealed to the world. So that's me in a nutshell. You still there, Paladin?
Yeah, I was taking my temperature again. That whole thing with that medical emergency was quite interesting, because it did happen on Skull and Bones Day, March 22nd. So,
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
that's when that came down. So I don't know if that was a message or not. But anyway, I just had started with Gmail, and I didn't really have it figured out. And I had a response to you, and for some reason I must have gotten, I don't know, interrupted. And so anyway, it was in my drafts, and it stayed in my drafts for, I don't know, because I kept thinking, well, I must have reached out to her. I thought I responded, and she's not responding to me. So anyway, I sent you another message, thank God, and you responded to that one, like, where have you been? So anyway, and I want to say to everybody that Lady Justice and I have been talking a lot. We do communicate every day. And her first email, when she imparted not all of her knowledge, not even close, but the subject matter that she gave me, I thought she was so up to date on the local matters there in Vegas that I thought she was from Vegas. I thought, my gosh, she's in Las Vegas. She had all this inside information, and it just really impressed me. So we hooked up from that point and shared our research and our investigation into Vegas. And in a lot of ways, we complement each other. In a lot of ways, we sort of have the same background that's based in the financial area. So I can talk to her about financial things, and she understands what I'm talking about, and vice versa. So that's it's just been a good thing all the way around. And about a month ago, I asked her if she would be willing to contribute to the White Hats Report website, because I thought that she has excellent research and investigative skills. And I mean, she comes up with stuff that I just have no idea where she gets it. And that's usually the first question I ask her. She sends me something and it blows me away, and I'm like, where did you get this? And this is kind of a daily thing with her. So she's now on board. She's part of the team, and I'm looking forward to all the information that she can impart on everybody, because it's a wide spectrum of knowledge that she brings to the table, and she has a different perspective that I think is very important in any kind of team that does an investigation. You need to have a lot of perspectives, because there's always some things that you overlook or you miss or you don't think about that the other people on that team can bring to the table that I think contributes to the whole. So I'm excited to have her on our team, and I'm looking forward to her getting started on the blog. I know she's preparing her first post, and then she'll be off to the races with the information. And I think you all are going to be very impressed with not only the amount of information, but the wide spectrum of subjects that she's going to be able to cover. So with that in mind, why don't you just do your thing and impart some information and some knowledge on everybody, and let's get this party started.
Sure, no pressure there at all. My goodness.
Sorry.
I mean,
It's all
sure, not a problem.
It's all deserved. So take it and run.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate it. I'm very excited to be a part of this movement. I'm very excited to be a part of what is happening in the world today. And I know that there is a lot of apprehension. There's a lot of the unknown. There's a lot of concern. There are a lot of variables to what we're experiencing today, and I have compassion and empathy for all of that. I myself have a young child, an 8-year-old daughter, and I have two older children. One is in college, and one's a mom of her own. So I have a lot of concerns about what is happening in the world today and what this world will be like for younger generations, and obviously including my children. So this has become a huge passion of mine, just to know exactly what we're dealing with, who we're dealing with, and what's going to happen. And I'm fairly confident in what I have researched and what I feel like what I feel like it is that we're about to experience. And but along with that, I do know that there are a lot of concerns, and there are a lot of there's a lot of misdirection out there as to what's going on right now. There's a lot of misinformation from the media. There's a lot of propaganda out there, a lot of lies, to be honest. I mean, there are a lot of lies, and sometimes it's hard to sort through what's what, and get a good grasp on feeling good about where you are as an individual, where you are for your family. So, with this live, I wanted to just talk about, make it a little bit of a lighter subject, because I thought it would be a good idea. We've had some conversations in many different social media platforms that that we venture into, and we've had a lot of different conversations about how to protect yourself from viruses, not just this, this Chinese virus that we're dealing with now, as our president calls it, but just making sure that you're taking care of your health, making sure that you are, that you are able to have some possible alternative measures to put in place when you are trying to address, the best way to treat yourself and your family. And I have recently had an experience about 2 months ago that truly changed my life in regards to medicine, and medicine that you would have to not only take yourself, but medicine that you would have to give your children, because my daughter started having nocturnal seizures and she's 8 years old, and it almost seemed like it was devastating. It's a very scary experience. It was something that I obviously did not expect. She's completely healthy. I mean, ridiculously healthy, to be honest. We've never had any issues at all. But that was something that started in January, and to be honest with you, when the first week afterwards was one of the worst weeks I've ever had in my life, and then I really started to assess what was happening, what I was being told by these professionals, the complete contradictions I was given on what is going on with her, how to treat the issue, what the medication would be, what triggers would be, what, if any, environmental issues there are that could be involved here. And I was given what I would consider a lot of runaround by people that, at the time I felt like I was completely and totally relying on for the future health of my child. I was very concerned about not having any direction, not having any real answers. And so I decided to throw myself in feet first and research what you could consider alternate therapy treatments, or what you could consider, maybe just getting back to nature, getting back to understanding how our bodies should be one with nature and be one with what's available with our natural resources. I did a lot of research on that, and at the time I had actually just recovered from a very, very nasty flu and respiratory infection that I had for about 2 months. And so, we were just looking at, what else can we do here? Because what they wanted to treat this issue with was very concerning, a lot of side effects, no guarantees, no answers that I could get from professionals that were consistent. There were not consistent answers from any medical professional that we consulted with. So I was lost. And I'm trying to read as much as I can on all of the information that's out there. And she wound up having a second seizure, and I met a nurse when we went to the ER that had recommended a location to me of a woman who sells essential oils and different things that are really healthy alternatives, and that give you a lot of opportunity to address your health issues without introducing additional concerns, additional side effects. And so I had to travel about 5 hours to meet with this gal, but she literally changed our life. We were able to get some great therapy treatments for my daughter there. We were also able to talk in great detail about this virus, because, I have to say, nothing is by coincidence. There is nothing that happens in life for me that I feel like is by coincidence. I do look at this particular challenge that we face as something that we, we have the tools to address. I mean, obviously, if I could change it, I would do probably just about anything in the world that I could to change it. But she's honestly, adults and children alike, one of the bravest human beings I've ever known, my daughter. And she is embracing life every minute that she can, and she takes on this challenge like a warrior. She really does. And so we did introduce some alternative treatments, which have worked amazingly well for her. Since we did start the alternative treatments, which is something that that we had to jump through some hoops to be able to give to her, but we did introduce CBD oil. And she's done amazingly well on that. She's only had one small episode since we started it, and it was just a matter of altering those doses a little bit. And knock on wood, she's been really great, and she's excelled. And it's actually it helps. It's been a helpful. It's been a helpful therapy or treatment for attention. She's kind of all over the place, and like any child is at age 8, but she's been able to adjust her concentration level, her patience level. I've seen just an incredible improvement in all of those areas. And so we're really excited about that. But along with that, I did have an extensive conversation with this gal that, she's part of my family now is truly how I feel. But she was able to introduce a lot of different treatments into our lives in regards to. I have a family member who has struggles with their blood pressure, and struggles with some pain in joints and that kind of thing. And so she's been a real lifesaver with all of those issues as well. I mean, a real lifesaver. It's literally changed our lives. But she also talked to us about a lot of different treatments or alternatives in regards to battling viruses. And so we've had conversations on different social media platforms about, just covering this kind of information. And so we wanted to start off light and get this information out. As far as what I've been using, and Paladin has decided to dabble a little bit with some of the essential oils and treatment. And so we thought we would just talk about this information and share our experiences. And we can talk a little bit about the virus too. I haven't been able to keep up in the chat here very much. It's going by pretty fast, and I've been going a mile a minute here with trying to get the information out. So if there are questions at the end, or there's conversation that you would all like to have, we are going to try and open the chat, where I think we could have one, two, or three people come on at a time. If you have questions, or you'd like to, make a testimonial of an experience in your own life, or, give us information, because the platform here is all about sharing information, getting information out, and becoming a white hat yourself, because we all have to work together, and especially in this trying time, this is all about truly where we go one, we go all, and together we will rise up. And the support for each other and sharing information is one fabulous way to do that. So I wanted to talk about some treatments that I decided to start after I visited this gal. And I've actually, I've always had essential oils in my life for many, many years now. I've used them on and off. But there were some particular products that she had available that I just fell in love with, and I feel are lifesavers. I mean, I do feel like I am a different person now than I was 60 days ago. And that's a lot to say, I think, when you are dealing with a stressor, like I just described. I mean, I'm sure you parents out there can understand and completely relate that when there is something wrong with your child, and especially something like this, it almost stops your world. And because of these being at night, I stay up. I take night watch, and I stay up with her because, I don't know that I could sleep if I wanted to, but I have to stay up. It's usually, if there was something that would occur with her, it's usually going to happen around the first hour of her sleeping. However, I'm just not there yet, as far as being comfortable with knowing that, once she gets to a certain point, we're secure. So I usually stay up with her until, the wee hours of the morning. I mean, I'm probably been getting on average about 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. Or that would be early morning, actually. So when I was able to meet with this gal, and that first and second seizure was about 28 days apart. So, it was a pretty trying time there for a while. And when I was able to meet with this gal, I was probably a little run down, sleep deprived for sure. And I was, obviously almost consumed with worry. So the fact that I can say, as of today, as of this day, I feel like a completely different person is a huge win for me, and I'll take it. I'm going to pat myself on the back for, going the extra mile to take what she gave me, take the knowledge she gave me, and really throw myself into research about all of this. And so some of the oils that she introduced to me, I will tell you, there's an oxygen therapy that are 2 essential oils. You can use these and put them in your in a diffuser, or you can actually put them right on your skin. And I will tell you that this was something that Paladin and I had discussed, this oxygen therapy. And this is also something that came up in discussions with us because of making sure that you are doing what you can, or increasing the oxygen in your blood, and your access to, you're opening up your airways, because it is a combatant against viruses. So I started the oxygen therapy, and it's a combination, which, just side note, I'm not trying to currently promote where I purchase these. I'm happy to tell you what's in these essential oil blends. But if someone is interested in speaking to the gal that I go to, she's been she's been in nursing for over 30 years, and she actually quit nursing. She quit her nursing job to go into this business full time, because she was just fed up with, big pharma and corporations being upset with her for suggesting alternative therapies to patients. And we're talking about alternative therapies that work. So I'm happy to just give you the information on the oil blends. And if you have someone in your area that you are comfortable with, you can, certainly consult with someone in your area. Or, if someone would like to have the information, I'm happy to give that too. But this is just all about wellness. This is wanting to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to experience life the way I am experiencing it right now, because I do feel really good about where I'm at now, and how I feel health-wise, and especially with the stress that we've had in our lives. And I mentioned at the beginning of this that I had just gotten over an illness, and that I was ill for about 2 months. And now that we are where we are today, and we have heard about this virus, and I do feel like we do need to talk about this virus a little bit after we talk about the good side. I guess we'll talk about the bad side too a little bit after we get all this good information out. But I do feel that there is a virus. I do feel that that there are many viruses that come and go and have been around for many, many years. But I do feel that that this virus was a legitimate virus. I don't feel it is anywhere near what the media is making it out to be. I do feel it's being manipulated tremendously. But I will tell you, I feel like I am certain that I had this virus. I do feel that it's quite possible that the illness that I had, and it was started right before right before Thanksgiving for me, maybe about 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, a week or so before Thanksgiving. And I had this illness. I couldn't shake it. I had it all the way through Christmas, I believe. And I could not shake the cough. I couldn't shake the fatigue. I was just incredibly tired. I had a lot of aches and pains in my body, aches and pains in my joints, aches and pains in my chest. I had the fever. I had all of the same symptoms, even though those symptoms have since evolved since we started hearing about this in the very beginning. But I had all of that going on, and it literally lasted it was a good, I'd say 6-7 weeks, going on 2 months. So I am very certain. I definitely had something I'd never had before. I've not been that sick. And so, along with my daughter and coming off of that virus, I was just absolutely ready to commit to something that was going to improve my health. And so this Congest Away and Wellness started for the oxygen therapy. And these are two different essential oils that, like I said, you can put in a diffuser if you'd like to do that. I personally do not put them in the diffuser. I actually put the Congest Away right on my nose, right on the end of my nose, and then I put it on the sides of my neck, and I put them on my wrists. And I think I will go ahead and read off what's in here, and so you have a good idea of what's in here as far as the oils themselves. But I can also, after the live is over, I can leave a comment on the live with all of the information as far as the types of oils that are in the ones that I discussed today. And if someone would like to have the information or the contact information of the gal that I go to, then you could always reach out to, I believe Paladin will have his email in the description of this video, and you can reach out to Paladin, and he, I'm sure, could give you that information, as he has this gal's information also. So the Congest Away is a combination of pure therapeutic peppermint, myrtle, coriander. I'm going to hack some of these names because I'm not an expert in the pronunciation of these. So heat chrism, eucalyptus R, and lavender EOs. That's the combination for the Congest Away. And then for the Wellness blend, there's cinnamon bark in it, clove, BDD, eucalyptus, lemon, rosemary, and lavender. And I will tell you, those two combined, when I use those, it is literally like I just got injected with fresh oxygen. It's very hard to really explain the feeling, and you can feel it continuously working throughout the day. And I put it on at least twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, but you just use a little bit. You can gauge how much you feel like you need, or what you're comfortable with when you're using these. But I absolutely love them, and they literally do feel. I feel like my lungs are opened up. I do deal with some pretty severe seasonal allergies. Sometimes I have had no problems, other than one day I had a little bit of a rough day with a headache when I live in an area in the Midwest where one day we had 77 degrees and the next day it was down to 30. And so sometimes when those days occur, that can be a little rough for me. But I usually go through a period of time around this time of year where I'm struggling with a lot of the coughs, a lot of the headaches, and really struggling with just having any kind of decent energy at all. I don't know if anybody has seasonal allergies, but that can be a real challenge sometimes. So those are 2 of the essential oils that I use for that. I also use something called hydrosol, cannabis hydrosol. And again, I'll put this information in the description. Right now, I don't have access to that particular bottle, but cannabis hydrosol is a great therapy for energy. It's actually, believe it or not, a great therapy, which the gal that I go to is experimenting with this, but it's a great therapy for restless legs too. Sometimes I have where my mind might be finally ready to shut down, which doesn't happen very often. But then all of a sudden, when my mind is ready to shut down, then my legs want to run away from me for some reason, and that's really helped my restless legs, and it does help quite a bit with energy. And then I combine that with something called niamaside. Niamaside is a supplement, not an essential oil, but it's a supplement that sorry, I'm catching comments here and there. Some of you are funny, making me laugh. But niamaside actually improves your mood, improves your mindset, does help with your energy level also, and can help with a lot of ailments also, aches, pains, fibromyalgia. So it's a great product to use as well. And then I also added bergamot into that mix as well. And all of these essential oils are actually combatants with viruses. They can prevent viruses as well. I just want to make sure I note that. So, and I also use something called Wellness in a Bottle. And this is a special combination that my gal uses, and the base of that is goat's milk, and then she adds a lot of essential oils. And what that Wellness in a Bottle is it acts as a hand sanitizer. So this, what she literally said to me was, you can throw your hand sanitizer away and just use this. It doesn't dry out your skin. It does have lemon in it, peppermint, orange oil, all of the things that, that you take for granted, that, some of the stuff, that you have even in your house already that you can use for cleaning products, or you can use, for health and combatants of viruses, and even, stimulate your metabolism. All of these things, some of them are, accessible in your house already, which I'll talk about in a minute. But this Wellness in a Bottle is a great way. And again, I just want to make sure I keep mentioning here that everything that I am talking about, I will definitely leave in a comment on the video, so you can have all of the essential oils that I'm talking about tonight and what I use them for. And again, if you have someone in your area that you would like to speak with about any of this, take the information to them, and I'm sure they can help you out with it. Or, if you'd like to speak with the gal that I use, Paladin has that contact information. So I just want to make sure I keep saying that here and there for the new people that come into the chat. So, I felt like I wanted to address, this virus and the health issues that we have from a more holistic approach. I do feel that, if you do your research, you can find a lot of quality information on the fact that our bodies are actually designed to heal themselves. And, they benefit most from natural resources that are found here on Earth, that aren't manufactured in a plant, and they're not sent from overseas. They don't have poisons added to them, or things that we shouldn't be ingesting. And in the long run, they actually help and assist with us being able to keep our hygiene and keep our health in place much better than store-bought sanitizer, or even some of your antibiotics. And of course, that's an approach that you have to take when you consult with somebody. But I do feel that it's something that can be accomplished. And like I mentioned with my allergies, I don't even take my allergy medication anymore. I've been able to adjust off of all of that, and just concentrate on the oils themselves. Now, something that really piqued my interest when our lives changed 2 months ago was the fact that I really, really wanted to understand, what environmental issues or what things could we be subjected to that could be harmful for my daughter, that could be increasing her chances of having a seizure. And this is something that I had tried to talk to the neurologist about, and I was very uncomfortable with the answer I received because of the fact that, according to the neurologist, it seemed that there aren't any environmental issues that I would have to be concerned about, and I found that very hard to believe. So I really started researching that on my own. I really wanted to understand why, we are currently looking at 1 in 26 children that have seizure activity now, versus 30 years ago that number was like 1 in 7 or 1 in 5. So there are obviously concerns about, the current environment, our current eating habits, our current, technology. Is technology a factor here? Is there, exposure to, lights, different lights? What am I dealing with here? And obviously, there's a whole gamut of things that could come into play and do. Obviously, they'll tell you there's no definitive research on any of this, but it seems like there are a lot of testimonials out there that ring true to certain environmental issues or certain exposures that most definitely seem to play a role in our health, and in particular this situation I'm dealing with. But one of those that really caught my attention is your pineal gland, and the calcification of your pineal gland with exposure to fluoride and sodium chloride. And so that was something that I really threw myself into, and I really wanted to have a better understanding, based on the fact that, in most areas in our country, you are exposed to fluoride just based on your drinking water. And, that's been a concern of mine for quite some time. But obviously, it increased exponentially after, we were faced with the health challenges that we were faced with. So I really started to research, what I can do to take that risk away, what I can do to eliminate or at least reduce that risk greatly. And, not to say I do not want to ignore the fact that, we all play a role here when it comes to our diets as well, because our diets play a hugely significant role in our health, in how we can combat viruses, and how we can stay healthy, and that your diet choices also play a significant role in your pineal gland. And I don't know, within the chat, how many people have knowledge on your pineal gland or what your pineal gland does. But it has a lot to do, especially with children. It has a lot to do with producing melatonin. It has a lot to do with your essential role in how you sleep. It has to do with how you make decisions, how you perceive reality. It's essential for psychological development, peak performance, and a couple of things that your pineal gland is associated with is how you perceive light, how you assess light, which is also tied to spiritual awakening. And, when I really started to throw myself into this, I was quite amazed at how much information just clicked and makes sense in regards to why there would actually be a need for the powers that be to put fluoride in the one thing that you can guarantee that we all drink, or we all have to use, or that we all absorb through our skin, which would be water. We can't live without our water. And most people drink their tap water. A lot of people drink their tap water. A lot of people obviously just don't even think about it when they jump into their baths or their showers. They don't think about how that water, even if they realize that it's not the best drinking water, they still drink, or they still take baths in it. They still take showers in it. You still brush your teeth with your fluoride toothpaste. And there's even a lot of fluoride added in different foods and drinks that we ingest. Teas, instant teas, a lot of fluoride in instant teas and powdered drinks. Pickles, which is one of my daughter's favorite foods, as a matter of fact. There's a lot of fluoride in some pickles, and sodium chloride added in pickles also, which isn't as bad. But so I started researching on how you can decalcify your pineal gland. And I'm seeing a lot of good comments in here right now. It looks like there's a lot of great white hats that are informed on some steps that you can take on how to decalcify your pineal gland. But I do feel that your pineal gland is really your center on how your true connection to your consciousness and your true connection to others. Your pineal gland is how you feel that the frequency of connection, the energy of connection. And when I started really understanding the correlation of the attempts of separation and division that we have all been subjected to for decades upon decades, and understanding the numbing and calcifying of your body, and the pineal gland that acts as that receptor to making sure that that those frequencies are that you're able to sense those frequencies, that you're able to detect your light and assess your light sources, and again, has a lot to do with your perception of reality, and and how you make decisions. It really started to click to me as to how we have been subjected to poisons that ensure that we feel divided as not only a nation, but there are factors that divide us from other nations. There are factors that that we're subjected to that influence our decisions on how to be divisive from other people. And so I really feel that that's something that anyone could benefit from, researching this and understanding how your pineal gland works and what you can do to detoxify that. And I've seen some great comments. Apple cider vinegar, as long as it's organic, the apple cider organic vinegar is a great option. Chaga mushroom tea is an incredible option. Rosemary oil. There are a lot of obviously colloidal silver is a great option, which I do actually take colloidal silver in structured water. I have that, and I drink that every day. don't know. I did see, I think, a comment or two about the colloidal silver in the chat. It is a great option, not only for your health, but it also assists with your pineal gland as well. And I do want to try and catch up a little bit on some of these comments here, just so I'm hoping that.
Well, why don't you let me cut in here and you can
Okay,
catch
yes.
your breath a little bit, and let me talk about a few things that while we're on this subject. Um, I have spoken to this lady, the owner of this business that Kale is, or Lady Justice is talking about, and the thing that impressed me the most about her is that, you know, we can all research this, and unless we're medical people or unless we're very familiar with the products, you kind of don't know where to start. And she insists on a consult. And so I had a phone consultation with her for about a half an hour. I told her some of the issues that I was having and some of the things that I wanted to accomplish. And she tailored the treatment for me. She sent it to me, and it's free because she's not going to charge you until she finds something that works for you, and then you can basically buy the product on a continual basis, and hopefully it will wean you off of any prescription drugs that you are taking, and that is the goal. So the reason we're going over this in the beginning of this broadcast is because what we're about to face, people, we're going to all have to get ourselves healthy, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, to go through the change that we're about to experience. And so the reason we're telling you this is because, you know, if any of you have heard my rants about vaccinations and prescription drugs, you'll know where I stand on that subject. And the medical profession has basically been hijacked or taken over by the big pharma killing machine. And that's what it's all about. So if you're having issues, any kind of health issues whatsoever, I think to look to the alternative places is the best way to go, because it's more natural and it's more healthy for you in the long run, and it raises your vibration, and that's what we're going to need. We're going to need to be strong in all those areas, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, to go through about what's going to happen, because it's going to come, and it's upon us now. We are at the cusp. So we have to be ready for it, because as I've said in the last few days, if anybody has heard on some of our other live streams on some other channels, some people are not going to be able to survive what we're about to go through. And so you're going to be able to have alternatives with the information we're giving you, because this is directly related to what's going on right now with this virus and this pandemic that they've declared. So we feel it's important that you get this information, because we want everybody to be healthy, and this is really a good thing. I mean, it's a good discovery for me personally, because I've been on some of these products for 2 or 3 days, and I can already see a difference, and I'm looking forward to getting some more. So everybody's anxious to hear what's going on.
Well, I'm glad that you came in and kind of rounded that out. I do feel like, there's so much doom and gloom right now. There's so much talk. There's so much, there's a lot of good and bad. I mean, I know that you and I are very positive about what we feel like is about to happen, but there are a lot of people who aren't positive about anything at all right now. And, your health is a factor here. Whether it's in regards to an actual virus, or whether it's in regards to how the world is about to change. And I do feel that addressing your health and getting your body and your mind more in line with nature is, I mean, it can't be a wrong thing, but it definitely can help you quite a bit in the long run. And I feel like that's it's just an opportunity for us to to have this discussion and get some information out there. And it seems like there are a lot of very informed people in the chat that can exchange information, and I think that the Discord in the White Hats group is a great place to be able to do that also, because I do feel ultimately what we're here for is to make sure right now in this live, that we can band together, come together, and focus on the positive. And there's a lot of power in numbers. So with that being said, I will put all of this information and much more in a comment after this live. Probably will be posted tomorrow, depending on how late we go here. So you have an opportunity to take advantage of some of this information and take advantage of some of these treatments yourself if you are so inclined to do so, because you can't go wrong doing that. And with that, if you want to talk about what we feel like the next steps are.
Yeah, what should we talk about?
Gee, I don't know. What should we talk about?
Yeah, so since this is our first live stream on this channel, like I said, we have been going on some other channels, Truth Bombs, primarily to get out some information, because Truth Bomb is the technological expert and he can put it together in 2 seconds and away we go. And I'm not very technically oriented, so that's where we've been. But we decided to do it here because we thought it was maybe time to add some content to the site and let everybody know that we're still around. So I got a timeline about a week and a half ago. And usually if I get a timeline, it's not necessarily a timeline as much as it is a series or a sequence of events that have to happen. So there may be an objective that we're trying to accomplish, or that there's an objective out there, and so you have to go through step A, B, C, D, and E to get to F. And so typically those timelines, when I get them, are event oriented. Well, this one was date oriented, and the dates had to do with what was going on with the coronavirus. And basically the gist of the information is that this is a cover for what we have all been hoping for and waiting for, some of us for our whole lives, maybe some of us who have just woken up or who are seeing what's really been going on in the world for a great number of years, that it's about to come to an end. And the coronavirus is a cover for the Great Awakening, the mass arrests that are coming. And there's going to be a lot of disclosure. I hate to use that word, but it seems to be a popular one in some circles, about alien and ET life. And those things are going to come pretty quickly and in rapid succession over the next 3 or 4 months. If you listen to Trump and you really listen to his press conferences, he is talking to us. He is talking to the people, and he is giving us messages that we need to take heed of, because he is telling us what's coming without coming out with the plan, because you can't tell the bad guys what the plan is. But the lockdown, the quarantine, all this stuff has to do with getting people off the street and out of harm's way, because when the arrests start, there could be some trouble, and there could be some pushback, and there could be some false flags that are going to be engaged with by the other side. And so they want everyone off the street and in their homes and in safety, because as we all know, George Soros has funded numerous groups to come out and do, riots and looting and create all kinds of chaos. And so that is what is going on, and that's the reason for this lockdown that's coming. I mean, I've heard that we're going to be going into martial law at some point. And the schedule that I've gotten, it seems to be sped up just a little bit, and I don't know what that has to do with. But I do think that as I watch things unfold, I can see where the timeline is being met. And in some cases, I think maybe they're a little bit ahead of schedule on the timeline, and that very well could be because certain things are happening behind the scenes. Now, as far as arrests go, I've heard that they've already started with the arrests. I heard that the arrests that took place in Italy had to do with Vatican. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, did Trump not send 20,000 troops overseas to Europe in February?
For Defense 2020.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's been deployment. I think if you go back and you look at Trump's EOs from the beginning, you'll see a pattern where the foundation is being laid for what we're going through and what's happening right now. He did an EO on the human trafficking people, that they were going to be prosecuted and their assets taken. He put out an EO about the United States Military Court of Justice, where be ready, guys. We may be calling some of you back to duty. And I've talked about that before, where I have a friend in Southern California who knows an attorney who used to be a JAG officer. And the JAG officer got a notice that said, be ready. We may need you. We may call you back to active duty. And a JAG officer, the only thing he would be doing would probably be going to Gitmo to administer justice for the traitors that they're about to round up. So that's what's coming. We're going to get a new financial system, and I think we're starting already now to see that being introduced to us, although they're not calling it that. But they're already extended the filing deadline for the IRS, and I believe you still have to file, but you don't have to pay for 60 days or 90 days or whatever that's been delayed. And so they're talking about this stimulus program, this stimulus package that everybody is kind of interested in. And they talk some about that today, and it looks like it's going to be, well, Trump, they mentioned the term or the number $1.2 trillion. And I think that is going to be very beneficial, and that's going to sort of that's going to kind of kick off the transition to the new system. The new system, as I understand it, is going to be gold-based. It's going to be based on the gold standard and asset-based. So it's going to be a complete change from the system that we have now, which is all debt. And if you've heard me talk before, I what I've said about the debt system that we have now, that it is destined to fail. It is set up to fail. If you go back and you look at history, this kind of a system always fails. And that's because at the end of its run, so to speak, what happens is the banks, because there's so much debt out there, just start confiscating everyone's assets, your 401ks, your savings accounts, everything you have, to pay off the debts. And then they do their own reset with a new system, and they start it all over again. And in this case, they were going to go to the one world order and the one world currency and the one world religion and the one world government. So that plan has been totally demolished. So to get rid of the Federal Reserve and the central bank's stranglehold over humanity, this is where we're headed. So I hope that everybody can understand that we need to stand down here. We need to kind of sit back, spend time with your families, look inward, as I've said before, and be prepared for what's happening, because this whole world is going to look different in 3 to 6 months, completely different. And as I've said also before, that there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to be able to handle it. They're not going to be able to deal with the reality that is coming. And that reality will include a lot of the people that they looked up to, that they thought were heroes, that they worshiped, are actually pedophiles and Luciferians and Satanists and human traffickers and worse. And it's coming. Okay, it's coming. And like I say, go back and read the EOs that Trump has put into place, because that's been the foundation laid for what we're about to go through right now. So with that, I'll look at the chat. Lady Justice, if you want to chime in here with anything, and we'll see if there's any comments or questions that we need to address.
Well, I think that you're right about the timeline. I do think that currently things have moved up. I think initially, I think that there were moves and counter moves that occurred that I think that they, put some protections in place that maybe didn't work out in the exact way that they thought. So we were a little bit behind on responding to to a few things, but then I do see that now that we're definitely moving up. And, in regards to the assistance that will be out there, there was some talk about this in a couple of different places today. Trump did sign the stimulus package that will be going out. It appears as if the first assistance that will be sent to Americans will be in the form of deposits in your bank accounts. From what I understand, the first one is supposed to be on April 6th, and the second one is supposed to be around May 18th. The exact amount wasn't stated, but it was supposed to be at least 1,000, from what I understand. But that will vary based on family income and family size or family household. There was also some more clarification on the guidelines and the amount of money that would be given to smaller businesses of, I believe it was 500 employees or less, in regards to the amount of SBA money that will be handed out. It will be a loan, but it will be interest free. And that amount for individuals, I think, added up to 6 weeks of pay with no more than $1,450 per week. So about $80,000 a year is how that would calculate to be. So for businesses that are closing or people aren't able to work, that was an additional stimulus package for them. And so we are looking at 3 different rollouts for that stimulus package. And I do see that there will be a significant change in our assets. How we will have access to our assets, what those will be backed by. We're definitely moving away from the dollar, and I think that's pretty exciting in itself. But you add that to the fact that you can see behind the scenes. If you look behind the curtain with Trump and you look behind since he's taken office, and one of the first executive orders that he signed was, I believe, on November 7th of 2017, or around about that time. There was an executive order that was signed in regards to seizing property from human traffickers. And I believe that plays a significant role in what we're seeing today, and the assets that will be retained with the criminals that have been taking advantage of our children in this country for years, women and children, and young boys. And that is something that I see will be added to that stimulus package in hopefully in the short term, but definitely in the long term. And then I do see that with the significant information that was given today, even though it wasn't invoked, I think it was misconstrued initially, but the information was definitely put out there, and that's in regards to the Defense Production Act. There are particular committees and acts that come into play if that is invoked, and that will give us additional protections in regards to our technology, in regards to how some of these, corrupt businesses that have access to your personal information may have compromised you. And so those things, that's a very extensive conversation that we can, have it another day, or we can put out some information on it. But if you look into the Defense Production Act and see the information that is associated with that, and the protections that are in place for your private information and the technology companies, and how they play a role, it's very interesting that that was announced by Trump today.
Yeah, and there's a spiritual aspect to all of this too. I don't know how many people have followed the Q phenomenon, but Q has dropped a lot of hints, a lot of breadcrumbs, and there have been some other social media people that have put information out. It sort of reminds us of us, only because a lot of the things that we put out breadcrumbs, we put out things that if you're a baker, you can kind of take those breadcrumbs and make a cake out of it. So you can't be transparent, completely transparent with people, because you don't want to telegraph your moves to the other side. So I think that's why we see a lot of what appear to be cryptic responses or cryptic quotes by Q and some of these other people. But in reality, if you actually go study that and you look at the 1 year and 2 year deltas and some of those things, you're going to start scratching your head and say, gee whiz, I think there's something here. And there is a lot of people out there that have done a lot of work with putting those things together and trying to make sense out of them. And if you do a little bit of research, you're going to find a lot of YouTube videos that are talking about that. And what we're going through right now is the Great Awakening. This is what we've been waiting for. This is the storm. These are all the things that I think Q and some of us, some of the other people have been talking about. The arrests are going to start, and they're going to start pretty soon. I think if you listen to what Trump says, he keeps saying this is not going to last long. It's not going to last long. And so they are putting people in place to effectuate these arrests. And it's a massive operation because, I think the last count I heard that we had 160,000 unsealed indictments. I don't know how many of those relate directly to the circumstances that we're in right now, but I'm sure some of them do. I know they've been getting Gitmo ready and prepared for these. I know that one of our guys in the White Hats group got a call from the person who is coordinating this, wanting to know if he wanted to be deputized, and he declined because he's already probably at least chest deep or neck deep in the new reset in the financial system, and he didn't have time to do it, although he would have liked to have gone out and played cowboy and arrested some people, but he just didn't have the time. So a lot of this information is coming to us, but look for a financial reset. Maybe not. It may not be made public, but it's going to happen by the end of the month. As a matter of fact, from all the indications that I've got from our network, it's already in place. The ball's already rolling down that path. I think some of the things that we're hearing Trump say on a daily basis, if you read between the lines, he is telling us that it's coming. All this stuff about the change in the IRS and the change in some of the when you have to pay your taxes. They're talking about backing off on the payroll deduction. And that's all directly related to the IRS guys. And the IRS is the collection agency for the Federal Reserve. I mean, it's very simple. If you go back and look, in 1913, we got the Federal Reserve and we got the IRS all in the same year. And that's not coincidental. That was for a reason. So I think we all have to be patient. I think we all have to also look at this with a different perspective. And that perspective is that this isn't the old empire. This isn't the old cabal. This isn't the deep state running the operation. This is Trump. This is the good guys. This is the white hats. So everybody has got to be patient. It's probably, for the most part, we'll be through all of this in about, 2 weeks to maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks at the most. And then everything's going to get back to normal. But the normal, it's going to be a very, very, very new normal that we haven't been used to. None of us have been used to it. It's going to be a whole new thing. And I believe that it is so significant that this time that we are living in is going to go down in history. And people will be studying this for hundreds of years and maybe even thousands of years in the future, because this is the time that the people, the real people, took back control of this planet. And I think it's a great time. It's a great time to be alive, guys. I mean, I'm so excited about what's coming down the pike. I can't hardly sleep at night. So I think you all have to be prepared for this, and I think you all have to try to be patient. I know that you say martial law, and that doesn't that has negative connotations with it. But the martial law, if it does get enacted, is for your protection, because that's to keep you off the street and keep you out of harm's way when the arrests occur. And do you really think that the bad guys, and you know who they are, most of you know who they are. If you've been following the White Hats, we've named them, we've talked about them. And if you've done any research and you've done any kind of any investigation. You know about the bloodline families, you know about the banking families, you know about all those groups, you know about Bill Gates and his eugenicist agenda, you know about his vaccination programs that are probably killing kids. If not killing them, they're probably sterilizing them at the very least. So you all know about these people, and this is their time on this earth is about to come to an end from the standpoint of their power. So this is a big shift. I think we all need to be ready for it. And I think you all need to keep this in mind as you're sitting home, not at work, and not able to do the normal things. It's time to look inward, and it's time to decide how you're going to address this new world, because it's coming whether you like it or not. And I think that probably by the summer, we're going to get some information that it's really, really, really going to surprise everybody. I think it's going to shock some people, and I think some people are not going to be able to grasp it and get their head around it. And so those of us who do understand what's coming need to put ourselves in a compassionate position where we can try to assist those people through the process. Okay. I'm going to take a breath.
Too, I'm sorry, I'm going to just jump in here too. I'm reading a lot of the comments, and I think that honestly, right now really is a time to assess things logically and approach the situation, because I know it is you know, when you start talking about things like martial law, and you know, you feel like your rights are being taken away, and you feel like you're being controlled when you shouldn't be, and you know, there's this voice that's in the back of your head that makes you feel like you know, there's something else going on, there's something that you should be concerned about. And you know, and that's a natural reaction, I think, for people that live in a country where, you know, we feel like we've been able to exercise some of our freedoms, although that's been somewhat of an illusion for many years. But I think that what you really need to do, instead of, you know, concentrating so much on the negative, and you know, not truly assessing or understanding or giving all of the information and opportunity to be considered in your opinion as to what's happening here, it would bode you well to do some real research on the bills that have been introduced by Trump, the executive orders that have been signed by Trump, the moves that he has made, you know, to abolish our country as being in the status of a corporation and get back to our republic status, to, you know, to ensure that we have our sovereignty, to ensure that we are no longer just factors in a corporation, and you know, to, you know, get our education back in line, you know, get rid of this Common Core education. There are so many things that are occurring to remove the strangles, such as things like the Act of 1871, and you know, the corporate status of our country. And you have to consider that that would not be currently the case. We would not be seeing those types of moves from our president if he was truly trying to put a stranglehold on us. You know, I really think that you have to take a broader perspective here on understanding everything that is in play before you just, you know, are determined to convince people that the sky is falling. We really have to, you have to assess this from a logical perspective. And even when you're talking about the virus, I mean, we are about the most advanced country in the world. And, you know, I've seen a lot of comments in regards to this virus, as far as, you know, we're not prepared and we don't know what's going on and we can't even get testing. And, you know, I really think that if you read between the lines of what's been told to you in regards to the press conferences, in regards to the media, in regards to the CDC, in regards to the World Health Organization, if you can assess what information you're being given and look at that from a logical perspective, and really do some research on, you know, even the testing itself and the lack of quality information that we're being given. The contradictions in the testing, in the virus itself, in the SITREP reports that have been produced from the World Health Organization. If you really read that information, you can see that there is something quite amiss in determining that this is all a reaction to this coronavirus or this COVID-19 that we are being told is the concern. So I would really like to see that people could could step back from their gloom and doom and take a broader perspective here and consider all of the factors and completely assess all of the information before you make a trigger decision, and start honestly going on social media platforms and presenting your case in that matter. I think it would benefit everyone, because right now is a time that it is of the utmost importance that people are joining together, supporting each other, and understanding what your role is in this, what your role is, what your responsibility is. You have to be accountable for your part. And that's something that I think everyone at this point in time needs to take very seriously.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some comments. I'm reading some of the comments in the chat, and it seems Nasara and Jasara has been raised. And gosh, I hate to go start down this road. So what I'm going to say about that is that Nasara, I don't know about Jasara. I'm assuming Jasara is spawned through Nasara in some way related to it, maybe on a global sense, and Nasara is the United States. But guys, that was a Bush crime family psyop that got started a long time ago. The beginning of that story, talking about the farm claims and some other things, is accurate. But then when you start to get to the point where you talk about the legislation being passed in the middle of the night at gunpoint, where special forces went to the senators' houses and held a gun to their head and made them sign the bill and all that stuff, that's not accurate. And the Rehnquist decision doesn't exist. That's not real. Now, what I will say is that what's about to happen is going to be the results are going to be very similar to the Nasara. That's the irony of all of this, actually, is that the results are going to be very, very similar to what Nasara objectives were. But if you read the book, and the name escapes me of the I think he was an economist who came up with the Nasara plan. He wrote a book, guys. You ought to go read the book, because he says in the book that his only regret for trying to get that legislation adopted and get it sponsored, which he wasn't able to. They were unsuccessful in getting that legislation adopted or sponsored with enough sponsors to introduce it as a bill, is that there was a whole cottage industry of scam artists that arose out of that idea and took it and ran with it. And he's not alive anymore. He passed away, but he wrote a book about this. So I get sort of half frustrated with the Nasara Jasara, because that is a Bush psyop that was started a long time ago. And the beginning of the story, and it's about the farm claims and some of those other things, are accurate. But once it gets into the point where it's introduced legislation and it was passed in the middle of the night, and then you get to the Rehnquist decision, guys, it doesn't exist. It's not real. But the good news is that the objectives of the Nasara plan are going to be achieved through other means, but it's not going to be Nasara. Nasara is not anything that ever got passed, okay? And there was something else in there, I forget. There was something else. I don't know, guys. If you have questions or comments, somebody else put something in there that I did want to address. It was an excellent. A debt jubilee. Okay, Greener Pasture says debt jubilee. In a sense, I haven't got the details on that, but one of the roadblocks to the new financial system has always been what's going to happen with the debt. And this has been an issue that they meaning the white hats, the good guys, tried to work out with the old families, the old banking families, and they just wouldn't budge on it. So guess what? They're just going to eat all of the debt. Now, as far as your car payment, your credit cards, I don't know how that's going to work. I know going forward, the financial landscape out there is going to be completely different than what it is now. And with that are going to are going to be changes in the reset that is going to make the financial system that we have now so extinct that you're going to look back on that at some point in time and you're going to think, how did we ever survive with that? And one of the things that's going to be in our future, in the very near future, is going to be the release of technology. And the release of the technology is going to change our lives in ways that we can't even comprehend at this point in time, because these technologies have been developed over time with our tax money, with our off the fruit of our labor, and then they've been used against us. Well, they're going to be released to the public so we can all use them and utilize them. And with that is going to come a great reduction in your monthly expenses on a monthly basis. And let me just give you one example. Let's say that there's a device out there that you could buy for, say, $100, and you put that device in your house, and it supplies all the electricity and all the energy you need to run everything, to run your heat, to run your air conditioner, to power your lights and everything you need. And guess what? You don't have to write a monthly check to the power company every month to pay for service, because the device that you have provides you with all the free energy you need. Okay, that's just one example. So that's what's in our future. And if you can fully grasp the prison planet that we literally are living in now, and you try to think of a way, how do we get out of this prison planet? How is that transition going to take place? um, maybe you will understand some of the steps that are being taken by Trump to make that happen, because there's a few things that need to take place in the timeline. And once those things are out of the way, it's going to be very rapid changeover. It's going to be a very, very rapid changeover. So I think those of you who understand the position that we've been put in over time, you will understand that it's going to take it's a big step to make that transition. And that's what we're going through. And if you look at it from that standpoint, you will see that some of the steps that they're taking to protect us against this virus are actually steps to protect us against what's going on, because there is a battle, there is a war. Trump has said that there's a silent war, and the enemy is silent, or the enemy is invisible. And that's what he's talking about. And one other thing, and I'll turn it back over to KL, but we're all familiar, I think, with Operation Mockingbird. We can't believe the mainstream media. So Trump has taken to Twitter to get the word out. So he bypasses the mainstream media. So the other information that we're getting from Q and other sources is bypassing the mainstream media. Do you honestly think that the mainstream media is going to be reporting on this stuff? So it's kind of ironic where I see some people, they know that the mainstream media is not telling us the truth, but yet they think that we're going to get good news about what's going down from the mainstream media. Well, it's not going to happen, because they're part of the problem. And I don't have any details, but I hope some of those people are charged with treason, because that's basically what they've been committing all these years. And it's interesting to watch these news conferences with Trump, because some of these people ask the most ridiculous questions I've ever heard, and it's old style. Let's ask a question where we can stump Trump, or we can make Trump look stupid. And, Trump just swats them like flies and goes on with his business, because he knows he's got the confidence now that he knows that everything is in place to do what he needs to do. And he wants to go down in history as being the one to bring about this change. And I think that's exactly what he's doing. And there's one other thing I want to say, and I've said this before, and those of you who've heard me talk in the recent weeks and days know what I'm going to say about the government. But guys, we have a government that is not a government, but it's in actuality a corporation, and this corporation has been in place for 150 years after the Civil War. And so what we have is a government corporation that is that contracts with us to supply us with government services, but they are not a government. So Trump is there to dismantle that. Trump is there to destroy that. One of our guys explained it to me, said, just think of Trump as the corporate raider. So if you understand that our government is actually a corporation, Trump is actually he's the president of the corporation. So you got to know that coming down the line, if we're going to restore the republic, there's going to be a lot of changes coming. And so you just have to be ready for them. But I want you to all pay attention to what Trump says when in his press conferences, because he is talking to us. And that might be a good topic for you to kind of just spend a little bit of time on, KL, if you want to.
Actually, I would love to, but I'm running out of time here a little bit. I don't want to cut this short, but I've had some changes in my household here that I might have to address. So I'd love to do this again in the very near future. We also have the Discord group that people are more than welcome to come in and talk about all of their great insight. I've seen a lot of great comments in the chat. I've seen a lot of information in the chat, and I think this is just a wonderful way to exchange information. A wonderful way to exchange information, and I don't know if we want to take a few minutes, because I'm really going to have to cut it short here soon. But if we want to take a few minutes and open the chat, or maybe we can do that another time.
Yeah, do you know how long you can stay?
I'm probably looking at about 15 minutes here.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, rather than go through the process of bringing people in, let's just throw it open for questions. Does anybody have any questions or comments that they want to direct to Lady Justice before she has to go? We'll kind of go that direction, and then I'll try to hold down the fort while you're gone.
There's always that delay.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
It is great. I would just like to think that this could be the kind of time, given the severity of what we really are facing. I mean, regardless of what you believe is happening, there are going to be significant changes in this world, and things are never going to be the same again. And it would be nice if you could see human beings more often than not. It would just be nice to see that the change coming together with everyone that wants to participate in something like this as well. Sometimes those expectations aren't met, but that would be great if we could see something like that occurring. Diane, I see your question about the how long for the lockdown. I have my particular thoughts on this, what we consider the lockdown. And I do think, we keep seeing Trump make sure to mention that he's talking about, the silent enemy, this invisible enemy, and we'll have 15 days. We'll be able to address this in 15 days. So I think that's a clue that we're being given on what is actually occurring and how long that might take. There have been in the past some indications that we might be in what you would consider darkness. I don't know if that would be just internet access, access to communication, access to news outlets. I'm not sure exactly what all that darkness would entail, but I do expect that we will see some pretty significant and maybe somewhat alarming changes here I'd say the next, what do you think, Paladin? I'd say the next 48 to 72 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's going to be definitive things come down within that time frame by the end of the week, possibly. Yes.
And I think we're looking at about 10 to 14 days, 10 to 14, 15 days where it might be a little touch and go. But I don't expect that, if you use your common sense and you keep your wits about you, you'll be fine. Everyone will be fine.
Yeah, I'm seeing some questions about the money and the debt. Just sit tight and let this process take place. I think maybe if I'm reading some of this, there's a little anxiety about the unknowing and what's about to occur, and if there are actions that need to be taken ahead of what's about to occur. And the answer to that is no. You don't really need to do anything. You don't need to arm. You don't need to go grab money out of the bank. You don't, unless you need it for certain things, like you need to go to the grocery store maybe once or twice in the next couple of weeks or something like that. But I mean, you don't need to worry about those kinds of things as far as taking action to put yourself in a better position later, because that's all been taken into consideration for this. That's all been planned for, and you're seeing actually some of the plans come out. I mean, we're talking about $1.2 trillion is what they came up with today. That's a number that's pretty big, but if you relate it to the fact that Trump put it in an EU where he's going to confiscate all the assets of the human traffickers, and think about what is it, NVXIM or whatever it is. I mean, they've already nailed those people, and they've been nailing people ever since Trump has taken office. What about all the assets that they've taken from those people? So I think that you got to just take that into consideration. And I know it's very difficult for you to sit tight and be frustrated or feel like you have the anxiety that you need to take some sort of action to put yourself in a better position later. Just sit tight, because that's already taken care of. That's already been taken into consideration. And I think if you listen to some of these press conferences where the news comes out and Trump comes out with the plans and what we want to do for relief for small businesses and the individuals and that kind of thing, it's all going to be there. It's all going to be there. So I think you just have to be patient, because this is a big operation that we're going through, and there's a lot of moving parts. And to come through it and be successful, we just have to be patient and protect your family, protect your friends, and do what you can within your 1,500 square feet or whatever it is where you live, and just try to hunker down for the time being. But I think we're looking at a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then we'll start seeing a loosening of some of the restrictions. But the restrictions are in place for your own safety. You have to remember that the lockdowns, the quarantines, and if we go to martial law, it's to be very, very careful for your safety, so that nothing happens to you and you don't get caught up in any kind of quote unquote crossfire. And one thing I want to mention, I heard there was an earthquake in Utah today, and that's probably either another dumb where the elites can go hide out has been destroyed, or a tunnel system, an escape tunnel system that's been taken out. So I think you have to understand that the battle is ongoing as we speak, and when the time comes to reveal it to the public, it will be revealed. So everybody just needs to have some patience and trust in the plan, because there is a plan, and it's a big plan, and we're underway right now. And like I say, we can look back on this in a few years, and we're going to be glad that we were alive to experience this.
I'd say the silent war is silent because, it's not happening here. It's happening below us and above us. Everything I see in relation all the way back to Vegas. Like I said, when I originally came on here and explained why I'm where I am today, has everything to do with space and what's underground. So I saw a comment about do we have to file a UCC claim for what was stolen from us? And I think you talked a little bit about that, but the fact of the matter is, if you have researched the moves that are happening behind the curtain in regards to abolishing the bills that have been introduced to suggest abolishing the IRS, to restore our constitutional rights, to rid ourselves from the corporation that that was put into place. I don't think that we have to worry about actually having to file for anything. They have our information on record. I do believe that has everything to do with some of the conversation or some of the information that Trump has been giving us with these stimulus packages. I think that is the beginning of restoring what's been stolen from us. And any other questions? They've been going by so fast, I haven't been able to see them. So if anybody had an actual, I see someone say, when's the next live chat? Who knows? Could be tomorrow, could be next week, could be, we kind of play that by ear. But based on the fact that we have a lot coming up in the next couple of days, I mean, I think that I will definitely, outside of what I have going on at home, and responsibilities, I will definitely try and make a concerted effort if we have the opportunity to go live, and we want to just share this platform for support and discussion. I'm all for that. So
yeah, and as far as future live streams, we don't have a schedule at this point. We're just kind of responding to what the current events are. But I want you all to really think about and take into consideration the first part of this live stream about your health, because that is the most important part at the end of the day. And I think that we need to realize that there are alternatives to the big pharma and the medical protocols that they've established. And if you do any research, you're going to find out that most of them go back to the Rockefeller family. And if you know that, you just know that much, then you've got to be concerned. So there are a lot of things in the works. It's a big transition. One other thing I can say, I think with pretty good confidence, is they're going to get rid of the IRS. And as far as an income tax goes, that, as far as I understand, will be out the window, and there will be a consumption tax, which will be 15%, as far as I know. What will happen to the straw man accounts? That will be part of the transition back to a new financial system, and I think some, if not all, of the wealth that's been stolen from us is going to be restored. If you listen to Trump talks about, we're going to win, we're going to be in great shape when this is over. So I think you need to understand what he's trying to tell us, and he's not going to telegraph his moves to the deep state or the cabal in public. But he's talking directly to us as the people, and he's trying to tell us. So we have to be ready. We have to meet our responsibility in this whole transition. And right now, we just need to be calm, and we need to stay calm and stay inside. It gives us a lot of time to reflect on ourselves and look inward. And it also gives us time to get ready for what's about to occur, because when we come out the other side, as Trump said, we're going to be a lot better off for that. So get prepared for that.
I think we have a big day tomorrow with the announcement that Trump will make. I am very interested in hearing about the developments that he mentioned several times today. And in the meantime, there's a lot of information. There were, I don't know if we can possibly put in some of these links on information that's been released today, but there is a lot of there are a lot of announcements and information that if any of you are on Twitter, I'm sure a lot of you are. There's a lot of information being announced and released by by military accounts, a lot of by the U.S. Marshals account with their Operation March Madness. I don't know who's been paying attention to that, but that's pretty exciting information, and it's it's kind of comical, honestly. the how they're approaching it, the name of it, but there's a lot of information being given. There were some announcements today from the Department of Defense and the Pentagon, and so if everybody's kind of keeping track of all of that, it's almost like we're being inundated with what we have to look forward to. So if you're really paying attention and you don't have that doomsday hat on, and you're able to see through the hype, I think that everyone could recognize that there are changes occurring and moves being made, that are positive, but keeping your health first and foremost, and understanding that you have to be able to receive the information, assess the information, address it, taking care of your health, and getting your body in line in the best way possible. Living your best life is paramount. It is absolutely paramount. So that is part of why we covered some of that information initially. I will put all of that in a comment on this video, and hopefully I would like for us to be able to revisit that again, because there are a lot of things that we need to address from a health perspective in order to be prepared for everything that's coming down the road.
Yes, I would agree with that, and I think that's why that's why I wanted you to talk about that to begin with, because that is the most important thing. We want to take care of ourselves, and we want to do it in the best way, the most natural way possible, because we want to raise our vibration, because we're going to be getting a whole lot of new knowledge in the next 30 to 60 to 90 days. And that's going to be synchronicity. Well, you know what I mean? It's going to be this, it's going to fit with all the information that we're getting, and we're going to need that higher vibration, which is, getting the calcification and around our pineal gland out of there, out of our bodies, because we're going to need all this going forward. It's going to sustain us through this time of transition. So I think we need to all be looking at alternative medicines, alternative treatments, because, we were put on this earth and there weren't doctors, there weren't hospitals, there weren't drugs. And so I think we have the most, amazing bodies that can really do a lot of things if we just assist with the proper natural ingredients that were put on this earth. I think we're going to be a lot better off, and we're going to have a better understanding of what's going to be coming down the line.
Absolutely. And Kitty, yes, I've heard all kinds of things about Tom. I don't know if anyone saw today, just for a little, I don't know if we'll call it comedy relief, but there was a response today in I can't remember what mainstream media article it is, but there were some concerns from Oprah because she had been informed or was told about these rumors that she's involved in sex trafficking ring. So she responded to that today, and was quite concerned about those false rumors. So we'll see how that turns out, I guess, won't we?
Yeah. And some people have asked about the arrests. As I understand it, they've already started. As I said earlier in the broadcast, that I understand that the 60 or 80 arrests or whatever that have happened in Italy already are Vatican people. And it's kind of interesting, if you sit back and you look at the virus map, Italy was one that you kind of just scratch your head, say, well, how does that happen? How do you, if the story that they're giving us is accurate and originated in China, how did it get to Italy? and Italy went into a lockdown very quickly. So if you take the blueprint that we're seeing here in the United States with this quarantine and the lockdown, if you will, and maybe martial law, you're seeing that take place in other countries because the same things are going on in other countries. And we have to understand that this is a process that's going to take a few days, maybe a couple of weeks at most, and then we're going to see it shift. We're going to see the momentum shift, and we'll be able to come out of this, and we're going to see a whole new world. But I've like I was talking to one of my guys today. I said, this is like a oil tanker full of oil steaming across the ocean, and if you want to turn it, you got to slow it down first before you turn it around. So that's what's going through. That's what we're going through now. And so we just have to be patient. And I think we come out the other side and we're going to be better for it. Now, Lady Justice, if you need to go, I don't want to hold you because I know you've got priorities there that are much more important than humoring me.
Actually, I'm okay. I have a few more minutes. So
okay.
If we had any other questions in the audience.
Okay, 5G. We knew it was going to come up.
Boy, that's an extensive topic to cover, but that is something that, okay, initially I was convinced that there could be a correlation with 5G, and that was based on, obviously, when this initially came out, although, like I said, I feel that, this virus has been present probably for, a few months before we even knew what it was. But based on the fact that you were hearing of the symptoms that were occurring, there was a lot of propaganda coming from China. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys watched those videos, and you could see when you were watching the videos that there was an awful lot of misinformation, disinformation, and just plain old BS in a lot of these videos that were coming from China. But the fact is that when you were looking at, the in-depth studies, when you were looking at the, these quote autopsy findings, and the symptoms that were listed, mainly being dry cough. As a matter of fact, it was noted that the drainage or runny nose was not initially associated with this at all. Now, I'm quite well aware of the different strains that were allegedly identified in the strain L through S, and I understand all that. But we need to take into consideration how we're being given this information and the contradictions within the information itself. So that is, that is something to consider when, your brain immediately wants to make, I guess, excuses for what this could be. But for the initial symptoms of the virus, we were looking at a dry cough, a sore throat, a fever, and a dry nose, obviously the fatigue and the difficulty breathing. Then we had a lot of the videos coming out where, you could see people just falling over. Some of them were bleeding out. Some of them were seizing. There were a lot of different scary videos being thrown our way. Now, if you take it into consideration that, just the virus itself and the information that was given, it really did not make sense that you would have such difficulty breathing or that you would develop such a respiratory issue based on the fact that, the respiratory issue more than likely, would lead to being fatal due to the fact that you had fluid in your lungs, and that would lead to, the pneumonia. Now, there was some information put out in relation to the 5G, and the 5G at a certain megahertz, absorbs that oxygen, and then you combine that with the fact that an initial questionnaire that was given to, in particular, the people that were held on the Princess cruise lines, the one that has one of their main advertisements to entice you to book with them is the fact that they had such incredible internet access, so you could keep in touch with your family. So, they were advertising that they had 5G. So in a particular questionnaire that was given to these people on that ship, one of the things that escalated their situations and led to them being quarantined was the fact that they answered yes on the questionnaire that they did take over-the-counter pain medication, such as ibuprofen, which is a blood thinner. So if you combine the fact that you do not have the fluid in your lungs, you don't have the drainage in your throat, you're not it doesn't indicate that that you would be concerned about something as along the lines of pneumonia or a chest or viral infection that would lead to death. But you do take into consideration that you could be compromised on oxygen if that was an environmental issue, and then take into consideration that they escalated your quarantine if you took something like ibuprofen, that those three things combined could induce some sort of internal bleeding that would obviously compromise your respiratory system. It made sense. It made sense that could be an issue, that 5G was playing a role. Now, however, when we evolved to watching and observing what was happening in other countries and on these cruise ships and the devastating effects of this virus in China, and then I believe it was Iran and South Korea, and then on and on and on. When we transitioned our focus to the US, it seemed to me that things changed, that we were looking at the symptoms changed. And this was something that I was looking at quite frequently, as far as the updates on the symptoms and the information that was put out there. So when the symptoms were then updated, and if you want to call it mutated, you can, but I'm not buying into that, that they were updated to now, we are looking at, runny nose, drainage in the throat, fluid in your lungs. And, we're certainly not, to my knowledge anyway, and this could be something that I've missed because I've moved away from focusing so much on the virus, but I've not seen one video of somebody just falling over in the United States or seizing or bleeding out. I've not seen any of those videos here. So I dismissed the fact that 5G could have been a factor because of the fact that you're not seeing the same, these symptoms are not occurring. We have symptoms now that, they've changed to symptoms that would make sense, where you would have this respiratory distress. That is until I started really looking into, and I might not say this correctly, so forgive me if I'm not pronouncing this correctly, but I then started looking into the very detailed timeline of the Huawei technology and the Huawei products, the ban on Huawei in the US, and the timeline all the way up until March 20th or March 12th of 2020 in regards to the activity that was taking place, the illegal actions that were occurring, the indictments that were filed against Huawei Technology and a company called Skycom that's actually was a front company. It was based in Iran. And there were 2 indictments that were filed against Huawei in the United States on January 16th of 19 and January 24th of 19. And those were in the state of Washington and the state of New York, which kind of struck a chord with me due to the fact that, our patient 0 was in the state of Washington. And then, we heard, obviously we know California was hit pretty hard, soon after, but then the next state that was the biggest concern in the States was New York. So the correlation to me was very interesting. And I started really looking into this timeline with Huawei. And I also took into consideration the fact that, our first patient 0 here that was identified as having COVID-19, even though I don't know how they were tested for that because we didn't have tests for that. We identified that we had someone with the coronavirus, but we didn't have adequate testing for that. And that also plays a role with the fact that even the in-depth study that was carried out with the cases that were identified in China, there were a lot of clinical diagnoses over there. There was a lot of asymptomatic diagnosing. So, the actual testing that occurred wasn't nearly as much as it was presented. So, identifying that they, as a matter of fact, had COVID-19 or coronavirus was, it was medical mystery, really. It was a guess factor. And this is a time where, you have such a high threshold of, influenza and viral pneumonia and, sinus infections and all of that, all of that played a role. So if you're diagnosing based just on symptoms, that could lead you down to a path that is somewhat deceiving, based on the fact that there was no adequate testing available. So aside from that, though, our first identified case was on January 21st, if I remember correctly, and it was a patient identified in Seattle, Washington. And it is a timeline. I'm a big stickler on timelines. So, at that same time, in that same time frame, we had just signed the deal with China on, I believe it was January 15th of 2020. So I'm in the middle of really assessing the differences with our symptoms here, this very intriguing timeline with the Huawei technology, and then taking into consideration other companies that have, welcomed that technology with open arms. So do I think that 5G could be playing a role here? I think that there is a correlation with this, with this virus, or this virus being, presented in the way it is to us, and the technology of Huawei, the Technologies Act that Trump, the Defense Production Act, and the Technology Act that was signed and plays a role in the Defense Production Act. I do think that there could be a correlation here on what's happening behind the scenes, with in relation to 5G. I don't necessarily think that 5G, at least in the US, is playing a role in triggering a virus or actually exacerbating the virus itself. Do I think that it's possible? And I'm not a technology person, so forgive me, all you technology people in the chat, if I'm saying this and I'm way off base, but I do think that it's possible that the technology itself from that company could possibly be playing a role in the symptoms or the virus symptoms, if it's in relation to some sort of correlation with, not only just the virus, but the virus, the use of the over-the-counter medication, and then the Huawei technology in particular. So it's a very long answer for a yes or no question, I suppose, but I'm still in the middle of that. The timeline for the technology and what was going on, what has been going on here in the States with this company it's incredibly convoluted. There are so many things Huawei technology was even involved in the the Senate hearings with Facebook and the Russia collusion and Cambridge Analytica. So, and there was a lot of exchanging of information and accessible, private, accessible information with particular apps and technology for Huawei that Facebook allowed. So, a lot of interesting twists with it.
Okay, and I know this is one that you may or may not want to address, but shifting gears on subjects, Looking Glass.
Oh boy, really?
Yeah.
I said I had a little time, not that much time.
we've got a good group here. You'll have to get used to that. We've got some sharp people, and so some been following us for 10 years, and so they've been keeping up with everything, so they're aware of all that.
Well, I bet they know all about it then.
Well, they're asking.
Well,
So
what was the question in particular?
Just I think it was a general question about Looking Glass, and I know that what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago, you sent me a YouTube about that very subject. That kind of started us down this road.
Wow. Yeah. Well, oh boy. Well, I was interested in the Project Pegasus with Andrew. Oh, I can't. Basiago. Yeah. And his information just intrigues me. So it started. My interest started with that, and then and then you can't. It's very hard to it's very hard to turn a blind eye to all of the historical indications that that there definitely seems to be an ability accessible that that can ensure that future proves past. So that's something to throw at me right now. Wow. I mean, I'm not sure what you want me to say. If the Looking Glass is the time travel, for those of you in the audience who don't know. But that is such a huge topic to address right now. That is a shoe in itself. Thank you. That's a shoe in itself. Even if you were not talking about this particular subject in the comment, that is a shoe in itself. What do you have to say about the Looking Glass?
Well, I'm not up to date on it. The best place to go for this is our good friend Carrie Cassidy at Project Camelot, because Carrie has interviewed Dan Burish on the subject several years ago, and Dan Burish, as he claimed that he was active in the program at that point in time, and it was there's even I think he did drawings. Somebody did drawings of what the device looks like, and it's a time machine in essence. And you can look out into the future. You can play scenarios by doing certain things, and then looking out into the future and get some sort of a gauge on what that particular decision or the action that's taken will have an effect and how it will run. And the bad guys, supposedly the deep state, has been working on that, and they've been trying to do various scenarios where they will be in total control. And from what I understand, none of them work. They just don't work. So, and I think there's a lot of variables with that. So I think that's what we have to kind of keep in mind there. And this is why we need to all participate in what's about to happen, because we all have free will, and we all can change the future if we just, concentrate on doing that. I think we've been trained or brainwashed to think that we don't have any control over anything, that we just sit there and we have to react to what goes down. And that's not the case. we can take control of our lives, we can take control of the future, and we can make it really anything we want if we want to do that. But Looking Glass is a subject that's, it's a very complex subject. And I would recommend everybody go to Carrie Cassidy at Project Camelot, go to her YouTube videos and look for any interviews that she's done with Dan Burish, or there could be other people that have interviewed Dan. And Dan worked directly with that program, supposedly with Majestic 12. So I think that's probably a good place to start. But the interesting part about Basaggio, and you can probably go Google this right now, but he was involved in Operation Pegasus, where they sent the kids back in time, and he actually went back to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and was present when Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address. And he has the story that when he, wherever he landed, when he went through the time machine, or I think the portal, basically, as the way he described it, and he didn't have any shoes. So he walked into town. He was outside of town. I think he saw a soldier, maybe from, a Union soldier. And the soldier said, go this way to get in town. And so he walked in town, and one of the shopkeepers saw him, who was, I believe, a veteran. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And so the shopkeeper took him in and gave him some clothes and gave him some shoes. And the ironic thing about the shoes were what, size 14?
Yeah, way too big.
Yeah, and he was a little kid, so what the shopkeeper did was he stuffed paper right down into the end of the shoes so he could wear them. Is that right? So if you go out and you Google this, Andrew Basaggio, Gettysburg, you're going to find pictures, and in those pictures, you're going to see where he's been circled as a little kid in this picture, and you actually can see Abraham Lincoln in the background. And look at the shoes that he has on. They look like clown shoes. They're so big. So anyway, that's just sort of a confirmation of his story. And if you Google Andrew Basaggio, Basagio, you will find YouTubes where he has talked extensively about Project Pegasus. So I think that's it's an interesting topic that some people will want to delve into.
It is an interesting topic. It is very interesting. It's eye-opening, and and the fact that there is so many things historically that indicate that where we are today is where we were destined to be. And I see a lot of comments. I think that everyone or a lot of people in the audience, that you've seen that the artwork in regards to Trump, the book that was written, I think in, what was it, 1898. So many things that indicate that we are destined to be where we are today, and we're on the right path. A lot of information out there for that. I did not expect to talk about this right now, so I'm thrown for a loop and not prepared. So
well, that's the way it goes. We got to be prepared for anything.
Sure.
Because we get a lot of questions here, and we have a lot of sharp people, and our followers and readers have always been that way. That's why they're followers and readers, because they're up to date on a lot of that stuff. So I could tell a short story about the Bush funeral. I'm sure some people maybe haven't heard that story. Are you going to be available for a little bit longer?
You go ahead. I might put you on mute for a few minutes, and I can come back and catch up.
Okay.
So go ahead, tell your story.
Okie doke. So there's been a lot of talk. I know there was a lot of talk, hubbub about what went on at George Bush Sr.'s funeral, and the notes that were passed, or the cards, or whatever they were. And there's been a project that we've sort of been working on. I don't know if I can call it a project. We were approached about 4 or 5 years ago with some information that some people wanted us to put out in the public. And so when we delved into it, we realized that it was a very sophisticated, complicated project. And the issue covered about 38 years and a lot of money, quadrillions of amounts of money, in the quadrillions, and growing. And it had to do with the Howard Hughes fortune. And what has happened is that the Howard Hughes fortune has been stolen by the deep state, the people that you know and have come to probably hate. Bush Sr. being the ringleader in that whole situation. And so what's happened is they have, through identity theft of a sense, in a sense, and we have the story, we're not at liberty to put it out at this point in time, but we probably will at some point in the future when all this sorts itself out. But anyway, George Bush Sr. had control of that fortune, and they used, I think, either 36 or 39 mutual funds to launder money. They've used the money for black projects, secret space program, coups, paying off politicians, blackmailing politicians. And so basically what happened was when George Bush Sr. died, then that left a void in that network. And so the notes that were passed around and I don't know who wrote the notes. I don't know how they were done. I don't know who was behind it. I have an idea. It was the white hats that were behind it. Of course, the good guys were behind it. But what it did was it put all those people who got those notes on notice that we knew about the Hughes fraud, the Hughes theft of Howard Hughes's fortune. And so, because if you go back and now that you know the story, if you go back and you look at that funeral and you look at the looks on the people's faces, I think you'll understand why they look so stunned. And that was because they were put on notice that we knew about the theft. We knew what they had been doing. So since then, that's created a void where they are afraid to fill it, and they meaning the people who were involved with that. And one of the ringleaders, so to speak, was James Baker, who is Bush's guy, the attorney, and I think he's probably still in Houston. He's pretty old at this point, but he is the one who was there. So anyway, I think what part of that was about was we're letting you know that we know about it. So what that's created is it's created a panic among that group because they know what they've done and they know they've committed all kinds of crimes, and they know that if that blew up, it would be very devastating to them because it concerns so much money. So as a result of that, no one has stepped up to take over that network. So it's just sitting there idle right now. And I'm not going to say any more about that. So anyway, that's what that's all about. But if everybody was wondering about the funeral and what was going on at the funeral with those cards or those envelopes or whatever, that's what it was. It was about letting those people know that we knew about the Hughes situation. Now, a kind of an offshoot to that is the Burisma situation where Howard Hughes was involved in oil and so when Burisma, the Ukraine company, is involved with oil. So once that got out, Trump brought that up and that got out, they decided they had to do something to try to knock that down. And if you go back and you look at what's happened since Trump took office, the Democrats threatened to impeach him almost every week for something new. And you thought it was going to be Russia, and the Mueller investigation and all that, and they still didn't try it. And boy, when the Burisma stuff hit, I mean, that took off, that whole story took off like wildfire, and it was in no time where the Democrats are talking about impeachment and they draw up the articles. So that was kind of a marker to show everybody that at least those of us who are involved with that and know about that was connected to what was going down at the funeral. And they want to protect that because it's going to blow all of them up. And, the interesting part of it is the Congress, most of the Congress and the senators are paid off people, and they're basically subcontractors, and they are the beneficiaries of those accounts because that's partially how they go in. And when they get elected to office, that they have a net worth of 200,000. And in a few years, their net worth balloons to 100 million or 50 million. Well, it's because they're getting all these payoffs to either move money around that's tax money to give it to these countries, or to it's basically used for bribe money to bribe the subcontractors in the Congress and the Senate to do certain things that benefit the businesses and the bankers. Okay, so I think it's a long, involved, complicated story. It's 38 years in the making, and at some point in time down the road, we will probably tell that story, and it will take a lot to get it all out, because it's very involved. It's very sophisticated, but it's a typical bush crime family operation. I'll just say that. Okay, are you back?
I'm back.
You are. Okay. Do you want to say something while I read the chat?
I'm just I do want to say, because I am going to have to wrap this up here, that I appreciate everyone's time. I really appreciate everyone who joined us tonight, and we're so supportive in the chat. The information that I shared tonight, I'm excited to share it. I'm excited to share my personal experiences with my own health, and the growth that we've had personally here in my own household, and I really would love to be able to share that with everyone else, and and encourage people to take steps to expand their growth and their mindset also. And I just want to tell everyone in the chat that was supportive of me sharing that story, thank you very much. That's not an easy thing for me to talk about with my daughter, and I really appreciate those of you that were positive and supportive while I shared that. I'm looking forward to to continuing to communicate with all of you, and I am going to make sure I get my first article out here in the next week or so. And I think we have some really, really exciting times ahead of us.
Okay, yeah, and we're looking forward to your first article, and that'll get you kind of seated in the process, and then we'll look forward to those articles. I think it's time for us to wrap it up. We've been going almost, we just hit 3 hours. So I think we will do this again for sure. I think this is a good way to get information out, and it's a good way to interact. And maybe the next time we will be able to call in, if people want to come in and maybe ask questions and discuss certain topics with us, we can bring them in, because I know sometimes when they put a question in the chat and we try to address it, they may have a follow-up question based on the answer, and it's a little difficult to do this when we're speaking and they're typing. So maybe the next time we do this, we may just do some live streams that just are question and answer, and if people want to come in and participate with us, I think that's probably a good thing. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I would love to be able to do that. I wish we could have done that tonight. I know we had some technology obstacles as far as opening up that chat and having people come on, and then obviously you think you have all the time in the world, you can cover all this, and then next thing you know, it's 3 hours later, and you haven't covered half of what you'd like to. So yes, I would absolutely like to continue this, and depending on on what happens tomorrow, and what announcements are made, maybe tomorrow it will be another day where we might have to hop back on here and see where the world is standing in regards to what we find out tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow's another day, and it seems like we're covering a lot of ground every day. It seems like there's just it's coming at the speed of light. And so I think there's just so much to digest every day, and I'm so excited about this. I'm afraid to go to sleep, because I'm afraid if I go to sleep, I'm going to miss something. So that's where I'm at. So it's exciting time to be alive. Any parting thoughts and final words?
Where we go one, we go all.
There you go.
Together we rise.
The Great Awakening is upon us. So stay focused, everybody. Stay vigilant. protect yourselves, protect your family, protect your friends, and be ready for what we're going to go through. And with that, I want to say good night and thanks for participating. And we will be doing more of these in the near future. Good night, everybody.
Good night.